Hey guys, so the last section here, what I want to do is create a HighScore system. All right, basically a sorting algorithm that will allow us to earn points by destroying monsters, and then adding that to our HighScore tally, and then from there have this HighScore be in a HighScore list that we can see on our screen, that will reset whenever we restart the game over again. So zero your classic arcade where your lives are over, your score goes back to zero even though you put the new quarters in, and then you can go up to earn a new HighScore. So the way this system is going to look, or at least our functional state machine is going to look something like this. Okay, and it's basically going to be an in system, and then it's going to be a sorting algorithm, depending upon whether we have our first spot, second spot, or new first spot, and then it allows everything else to trickle on back down. This is kind of going to be the goal of our state machine. I'm going to break it all down so that we can, so it's a little more understandable. And we're going to kind of build it up a little bit slowly, but the idea here is to create a HighScore system that we can see on our GUI that will update depending upon what our current score is. Now there's one thing about it, this is going to be a little complicated and a little convoluted in the way that it works, and this is kind of a perfect example of where actually creating the code, creating the algorithm inside of a function call or something like that would be probably the better way to do this. But I want to show that you can do something like this inside of Playmaker. In the case of something, maybe this was a damage system where you had, standard damages on up to critical hits, and that sort of a situation that would need to trickle down and have a different effect upon different monsters and things like that. So what I'm trying to create here is a little more complicated functional sorting system. Again, I think maybe coding this would be a little bit easier, a little more straightforward, but I just want to show that that you can do this inside of Playmaker, and it's actually not as bad as it looks. Alright, so the first thing that I'm wanting to do is I want to go and create a new manager. Alright, so component, create empty, and this one is going to be, instead of game object, we're going to call this thing score manager. Okay, so that's what we really want this thing to be, is our score manager, because it's going to take care of everything that has to do with scores. Alright, so here's our score manager. We're going to go ahead and add an FSM to this. I'm just going to see if I can header state 1, and first thing I want to do is call this one score GUI, okay, because this is what it wanted to be, right? We wanted to be able to draw our scores on the screen. Now what I want to set this thing up to be is, let's make it a 4-part. We have our current score, and then we're going to have, say, 3 top score variables, kind of a top 3. That seems like that would be pretty straightforward. So what I want to do is come over here to my variables, and let's create a couple of globals. So right now we have our player health and lives, and I want to add a new one. These will be ints, okay, because having fractional scores, you can do that, but I think having these being standard ints would probably be most effective. So let's call this one HighScore 1. Alright, and we'll set that one to be let's say 100 at the moment, okay. And then we want another one, call this one HighScore 2. Alright, we'll make this one 50, and then we're going to set another one for HighScore 3, okay, and we'll make HighScore 3 like, I don't know, 20, okay. So right now we have 100, 50, and 20. Okay, these are going to be our main 3 high scores. These are going to be our global variables. These are going to stay no matter what the state of our game is. They're going to stay that way until they are set by something else to be something more, okay. Last but not least, I'm going to go ahead and create a variable called current score. It's going to be an int, set it to 0. I want to make this a global variable as well. The main reason I'm doing that is just so it'll be more easily shared by all the different objects and things in the scene, so different stuff can all talk to and make changes to our current score. That'll be our main one that we're going to change and reset as the game goes on. All right, so the first thing we need to do is under our score GUI, we need to go back down to, let's say, GUI. Let's go back to a GUI label, and we'll have our text. And what we should do is just do a score, right? And that'll pop up over there. That's perfectly fine. Minimize that, and then we'll add one more label, and we need to add our variable, and then the new variable is going to be, let's call this one score, or C score for current score. Let's see here, cur score strg, string. Okay, we don't want to be a float, we want it to be a string, and it can be 0 at the moment. That's just fine. Let's go to our state. Let's go to our text. Let's make sure it's current score string. It's set it as 0, and what we're going to end up doing is just kind of scooting this thing over. So put this about the middle of the screen, and then move our score here. Let's move it in some. All right, so there's our score and our current score. So that's the first thing we want set up. So here's your score GUI, our current score, and then our score string. Okay, so that's these first guys being taken care of. Now, what's going to have to happen is we'll have to have an update so that whenever we score, we'll allow it to change and to update things. We'll do that in just one moment. So the next thing we need to do is we need to have a way that we can show off these high scores as well. All right, so what we're going to need for these is, let's go back to our variables, and right now we have a current score string. Well, let's add a couple more. All right, so because we know we're going to need to convert these into strings, we're going to need 3 of them for each of our high scores. So what I want to do is HighScore st string strg. All right, so it'll be HighScore string. I should say HighScore string 1. Okay, and then we're going to want to do another one, HighScore string 2, and then we'll do HighScore string 3. Okay, HighScore string 1, 2, and 3. One thing I do like about Playmakers, you can quickly come in here and change these variables, and once you name them once, you don't have to worry about mistyping them later on. Alright, so let's see if we can do a little bit of copy and paste and get this stuff set up. So let's take these 2 here, and for ease, what I'm going to do is I'm going to rename these. So if I go to edit name, instead of GUI label, what we want to do is we want to edit the name. In this case, we want this one to be score label. And the second one here, we want this thing to be score current score number label. This one should be score label, and then what we can do is we can just kind of say copy selected actions and paste actions, and see how they drop them down here. So this one here, we're going to rename it, say here HighScore 1 GUI label, and then call this one HighScore 1 number. All right, so I'm going to copy and paste this 2 more times. All right, so copy, paste, and paste. So let me change all these real quick. Whoa, it's magic. Yeah, I know, I just updated them. You just double click, change the name, and go on. So let's change the way these labels work, because right now we just have these kind of sitting up here, not doing much of anything. In this case, this text actually got changed. So let's make sure this is set up to score. All right, so here's our score and the rest of it. So what I want to have done now is take this HighScore 1 and go left over here and make sure we change this to HighScore 1, something like that. That looks pretty good. Let's bring it in a little bit because that'll be a pretty cool number. It's a 0.78. Let's see what 0.75 looks like. That'll work. 0.75. So what I want to do is under the rest of my high scores, HighScore 2, change that to a 0.75, and then do all the rest the same way. Change them all to 0.75s. All right, so I've just expanded all of them. So what I'm looking at now is where all these things are set to be a text. So this is the number. I'm going to change it to none at the moment because we're going to have to change these variables here soon. But let's change this one to HighScore 3, which is already it's a text string, but there's nothing in it yet. So just for the sake of laying these things out, let's go back to our variables. In HighScore 1, I believe it was 100. HighScore 2, I believe, was 50. HighScore 3 was a 20. Okay, so those are our strings. So go back to your state, and HighScore 3 number should be HighScore string 3, correct? HighScore 2 should be HighScore string 2, and HighScore 1 will be HighScore 1. All right, so these are the numbers. You can see the stuff kind of laying on top of each other. Well, if this was a 0.75, brings it up to score. What we need to do is slide this over so it's something more along the lines of this, let's say. So what's that, a 0.993, that'll work, a 0.9. So that should be good on that. This is a 0.75, and we need to bring it down just a little. Okay, this is our HighScore 2 GUI label, which needs to say HighScore 2, right? And then bring it down, 0.04, 0.05, 0.04 looks pretty good. So we'll set this one up like that. Whoa. So HighScore 2, HighScore 1, it's a 0.9. All right, so HighScore 2 is 0.4. So this guy needs to be that 0.9, and it needs to be down 0.04. All right, so it's kind of placing itself. Okay, so here's the next one, 0.75. Bring this one down, let's say 0.08, right? Change that, instead of to being a name, it needs to be HighScore, right? 3. Put a little thing in, it's going to work that way. And then what I want to do is come down to this last one, change it to that 0.9, and then bring it down from the top of 0.08. Okay, so now this just basically lays out our entire GUI. Okay, so what we're going to do in the next video, because this one's already running really long, is put all the sorting algorithm behind this to make it all work together.